Thomas, and let's review then the first of the complex adaptive systems features, which is contextuality. We will make a connection with traditional science first to establish the difference between traditional science and complex adaptive systems. In traditional science, interaction among entities follow in most cases a smooth dependence on the parameters which define them. I will show this very simple example, how science thinks about changes, how science thinks about interactions. The very simplification tries to make smooth dependence on parameters. So for example, if we let an apple fall from a height h or a smaller, bigger height, slightly bigger height, the difference in speed and position of the apple will not be noticeable. The same way, evolution of traits in Darwinian evolution are thought to occur in small steps, so there are no major changes from generation to generation. So we think that changes, the very notion of change in the conditions or in the variables, are generally made very little and have no major impact. So for example, in the left picture, we can look at the red and blue trajectories, which are represented by the two apples falling from a height, let's say h equals to 1 or h equals to 1.01, which represents some just slightly higher height. And the trajectories, if you look at the motion of the position from 1 to 0 in time, so how the apple falls, the two trajectories are almost the same. If we look at the ideas of Darwin on how birds adapt their shape, you can see that always in different regions, close regions, you will find close variations. So things tend to change in very smooth form. So in complex systems, interactions among entities might have radical dependencies. What that radical means is, for example, that a very small change or a very small change in the conditions might imply a very big change in what's going to happen. The simple physical example, in the most simple example, is a ball moving along a surface with a complex shape. Actually, we call it a complex shape because the motion that it will imply, it's called complex. Why? Because maybe not so large changes will induce very large changes in the very large variations in the trajectories that we will observe. So for example, if we push the ball in this type of shapes that you can see here in the slide, you will see that within certain ways of moving the ball will remain in the same valley. If you push it too much, it will go to another valley. But then that's why you can see there is a critical point. If you push too much, you will change completely the position of the valley, and it will evolve and it will become stable in another valley. So if we manipulate these shapes and we manipulate the way in which we move the ball, we will have trajectories that are completely different between each other. This is understood as contextuality, because you can change things and these changes will imply completely different things. Technically, contextuality can be referred as nonlinearity or non-trivial responses to parameter modifications, or sensitivity, which means small changes induce large variations. And there are other forms of speaking about contextuality, but we will not dig much into it. It's a very deep topic. But the idea is to understand that not always we can think that the parameters that define how the behavior of a system is going to be, not always these things are so smooth. For the planetary motion, we get this. For light or for gases, we have that things are manageable. For a natural selection, is manageable. But in a complex system, there might be so many interdependencies that a little change will kind of propagate and make a major change. We will explain exactly why. Now, interestingly enough, the ball metaphor can be used to explain complex approaches to natural selection. Indeed, for example, this example in the slide, you can see a gene regulatory network which is to make it in a very simple way, it's a microbiological entity, something that it's part of what the cell needs to survive. And these gene regulatory networks evolve. So what we look in this in the beginning, in the upper plot of the surface, we see that there are many cells having the same structure. And then because of DNA evolution, change of that cell diversity, or the reasons you can see there, the cells or these gene regulatory networks evolve into different forms. And because the shape, the evolutionary shape, which is called like Waddington surface, is an idea to think that evolution looking the best reproductive success will be being down in the surface. So the balls move down, always looking for the best reproductive success, but there might be different places to go down. So the evolution traits, the lineages, move towards these valleys a long time and reach different local minima in this surface, which represent different evolutionary stages or evolutionary forms. In the end, different species. So that's why, and this ball metaphor is indeed used to explain, as I say, more complex approaches to natural selection.